but people who've read the book 50 times will notice something, and they'll be like, oh, like you actually have a reference to that in there. And yeah, we've read the books 50 times in the last few years, so yeah.
Thank you so much for greeting us in your sandworm booth. I think it's always interesting when a game kind of comes back to Gamescom or an event like this after release. I know you guys were here last year as well. How different is the experience coming to a show when the game's already out and it's more of a known quantity?
I mean, it's pretty cool because like I get, online you sort of read comments and there's a lot of negativity and, people love the game. Some people hate the game and they let you know in no uncertain terms, and you kind of remember those things. But at Gamescom, I'm meeting a lot of people who've just come up and thank me for the game and say like, hey, I played it for 300 hours.
Wow.
And I mean, it's only been out for 2 months, so that's a lot of time. and it's genuinely like very touching. People are like telling me their stories from the game, how they were playing with their friends and X happened and Y happened, and they get these generated moments that you get from a sandbox and telling me those stories, and then I can bring that back to my team in Oslo and like motivate them and be like, hey guys, like people do actually love this game, so it's kind of cool. I'm enjoying it. Good energy.
That's nice. That's nice. I was looking at some of the kind of stats around launch. So I was looking at the peak on Steam was around
190,000.
Were you guys happy with the numbers, with the performance and stuff?
Yeah, I think like I mean, very happy with how it launched and things, and things slowed down over summer as they do. So yeah, hoping that like more people will get into the game. Like I still think there's a lot of people who haven't picked up the game who would love it. So yeah, I'm hoping to sell more, but like at the moment, I'm quite happy with how it went, and there's a lot of good buzz. Like we had very positive Steam rating. People were excited about what the game was, and I think it really hit like a vein with people. One of the main things for me is that it is a very true to Dune game, and that was one of my key goals as the creative director. I was like, we have to make a game that feels like Dune. We can't just rip off the IP in a way and make whatever game. We need to make it a Dune game, and people really seem to believe that it worked, and I feel it myself. So yeah, very happy with that feedback.
Awesome. Over the years, could you kind of calcify your idea of what makes a Dune game and what makes it feel true to the world, and what are the components like? Yeah,
I think it's understanding the themes that Frank Herbert was exploring, and like trying to recreate the feelings of being on Arrakis. So a lot of it was research of the books. Like the movies obviously helped because they did a lot of the visual work of like creating a setting that people would understand and see, and then having read the books and going through and like making sure we're authentic to the details. So I think like the example that I like to use is like if you played Halo, they have a shield system too, and their shield system is not the way that shields work in Dune, and it would have been easy for us to just make a Halo shield system and call it the end of the day. But no, we actually made the shields work like they do in the Dune universe, make them, slow blade penetrate, make all that stuff actually work. And it was mechanically quite difficult to get right, but functionally I think it serves the purpose of creating a Dune IP. So it's getting all those details right that are there in the books, yeah.
And those are the kind of things that I imagine mega fans of the books are now thanking you for doing it, right? Which must be nice.
Yeah, it is cool. It's fun to like talk with people who really love Dune and have them notice details that like nobody in the general public would notice, right? People who, maybe people read the book once, but people who've read the book 50 times will notice something and they'll be like, oh, like you actually have a reference to that in there. And we've read the books 50 times in the last few years, so yeah. We put stuff in.
It would take me 50 years to read one of the books. I read so slowly. I think, obviously, a very positive thing is that tens of thousands of people still logging on and playing. I was looking at the concurrence right now. I'm like around 20k or something like that.
Yeah.
How glad are you to have that? And was there a version of events where, if the player count got to a certain level, we'd have to think about moving on to something else, or were you always locked in to keep?
I think our game is not a we don't rely on old players. We rely on new players in a way. So it's actually selling new copies of the game because the game's $50. There's no subscription. There's no monetization apart from we're going to launch a DLC, but we're not charging people to play the game on an ongoing thing. So those players who are still logging in and playing are just playing because they enjoy the game, and we're not asking them for money right now, right? So I think from the business perspective, our actual biggest goal is that lots more people come and enjoy the game. So we're trying to like make sure that people are aware, come try the game if you haven't tried it. I think we're launching a free trial, a free 10-hour trial of the game very soon, so people can jump in and play. So I don't think our business relies on that. The CCU isn't as important to the business model of the game. However, it's nice if people keep playing the game because there's a political end game. You know, we want people to be bouncing off each other. We want the Atreides and Harkonnen to have their conflict, and you know, we're going to keep building on that as well. So
I think it must be one of the big challenges for any game launching in this day and age is how do you reach people, and how do you maybe pull people away from other games that they are very like locked into the behavior of playing. What are like some of the things you've found to be like successful ways of doing that?
Yeah, I mean, at least for us, I think it's just you entice people with a new vision of a world, something that hasn't been done in this way before. Like I think Dune itself is a very interesting. You know, it's kind of like there aren't a lot of games that have the tension of the sandworm. There aren't a lot of games that do the mechanics that we do in survival. Like there are survival games everywhere where you chop down trees. There are very few survival games where you're like using a dew harvester to suck water off plants. And so I think offering that uniqueness to get people to notice you, it's all about sort of marketing and making word of mouth and people reaching out. I think the challenge of pulling people away from other games is if they're heavily invested, that's why it's a $50 entry fee and you can play the game as much as you want. That's the barrier to entry, right? And so I think that's kind of the goal. It's like don't have microtransactions, don't have a subscription, make it easy for people to play the game and just enjoy it. And then if they want to leave and go back to like, you know, whatever they play, like, because there's a lot of these games that I kind of call them the Premier League of games. There's this top league of games, and it's very hard to break into that top league, right? And people just play those games over and over, and they're live services that are very successful. If people want to leave Dune and go back to them, and then come back when we do updates and DLCs, I mean, that's fine by me. I think that's actually a very healthy way to play games.
Nice. And tell me about the new DLC. What's kind of the vision for it? What are you adding with it? Like,
yeah, so Chapter 2 is what we call the update, and Chapter 2 has two parts. It's a free update. It includes like the main story continues, so the main narrative of the game sort of ends on a cliffhanger, and then Chapter 2 starts to continue that story, and I kind of see it like chapters in a book or episodes of a TV show. So every chapter we're going to continue the main story. Cool. That'll always be free. And then there's like new missions, new random dynamic events. There's a big event that will run in the game for a few weeks. And then there's this paid DLC, which is like it's like a new quest line with a series of dungeons that players can do, and all of the rewards are cosmetic. And you also unlock a new vehicle, which you can see on the screen over here. So yeah, it's kind of that's kind of what the DLC entails. And we've been very careful to make sure that like there's nothing in the DLC that gives players power or advantage over players who don't buy it. And if you buy the DLC and you play with a friend, you can give them the vehicle from the DLC. You don't have to they don't have to buy it if they don't have money or whatever. So again, trying to be a bit generous to people.
That's nice, because that encourages them. Like, it doesn't discourage people playing together. So actually, you can only play with people who have paid for the extra kind of thing. That's a really nice move.
Yep.
I saw you guys have got. Is it next year aiming for console release? Is that right?
Yeah, probably next year sometime we're going to launch on Xbox and PlayStation, yeah.
No. How, as a tech novice, how complicated is it to take a game that runs on PC and to make sure it runs properly on consoles?
Yeah, so I mean, I've done it we did it with Conan Exiles, and it took about a year, and it was, or a year and a half nearly. It's quite complex. It depends. So with Dune, we're a bit smarter. So we designed the game to work on controllers from day one. So we didn't have to do all this conversion of trying to fit all the keys onto a controller. So we were smart enough to do that, and we developed a lot of our UI with the idea of controllers in mind. There's that level, and then there's the technical level of just trying to fit the game into the memory of a console. PC hardware is like you've got the very high end, and then we have very low minimum specs as well. I think a 1070 can run our game. Wow. I think that's the lowest. So it's not that the graphics won't run, it's actually just the memory space of the consoles that tends to be the limiting factor. And so there's a lot of optimization you do there in the way assets are loaded. And to be honest, I'm not a coder either, right? But there is a teams that work on it, and I sort of read their reports, and they're always just trying to find ways to optimize to get the assets to load more fast into memory, have shaders be more optimized for those platforms. So it's a fair chunk of work. We usually allow about a year just because we're pretty, let's say, cynical about it. It takes a while. And then each platform holder, Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, if you're doing that, they all have different requirements for how the game functions. If someone pushes the power button on the console when you're in the middle of a game, what happens? If someone pushes the Xbox button, what happens, right? And you just have to code a solution for every platform. So, and because we use Unreal, some of those things are built in, but not all. So you have to do the work.
Now, does doing those optimizations for the console version, does that then kind of feed back into the PC version? You can or continue optimizing that with the same stuff, or does it not really work like
depends
that?
what it is, right? Because the consoles run AMD graphics chips, right? So it might be that you get some good optimizations towards AMD, but it won't help the NVIDIA stuff. So it just depends on on what you're doing, right? So
awesome. Well, I think it sounds really cool. One thing I was wondering is my assumption is that the next Timothée Chalamet film is quite a few years away still. Is that something you guys are aiming for in your mind? You're thinking, or when the film comes out, we want to have something to drop for that, or is that a?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we obviously have a pretty close relationship with Legendary, right? So we'll keep updating the game, and when we know when that film is coming, we will definitely try to make some noise about the game at the same time and get something working. So yeah, I mean, it's always in our minds. That's why I see Dune as well, the game itself. We launched this year, but there's a new movie coming. Yeah. And at that point, there'll be a lot of buzz around Dune. So I want the game to be thriving and continuing, and so that when that point comes, there's another peak, right? And we get more players in, new players, and just keep going, right?
Definitely. I feel like people are still discovering the books as well. I've got a friend who's been reading them on holiday and is cracked the spine on one, and he's so happy that he's got that far.
Nice.
But I think it all sounds really exciting. Is there anything you can kind of tease about the story of the update? Is it kind of so it picks up from a cliffhanger? What's kind of the vibe?
The end of the main story, there's quite a bit of revelation about who your character, sort of what's your character's background, something that you learn about yourself. That's quite a, and then in the main story continuation, you're kind of trying to figure out certain things, and you go on a bit of an adventure, and you end up going into places that maybe are a bit forbidden, trying to find out certain information about yourself, and that leads to some consequences that lead to another cliffhanger, because that's how these TV episode style things need to end. So
yeah, it just ends. Everything's perfectly wrapped up. You can uninstall the game. It actually deletes itself. Awesome, though. It sounds great, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat. And enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, great talking to you, and
you
enjoy Gamescom.